everyone. Today we have Sherry, the Crizal brand manager, presenting on the new Crizal UV and the Crizal portfolio. If you can save your questions till the end, that would be great. And let's get started.
Okay, can everyone see my screen? So safe, so fair?
Yep, it should be coming. I switched to, are we using Matt?
No, do you see Sherry on there? Are you under your name? Do you see her on there? I saw that you sent it to me.
Okay, let me switch it quick here.
Show my screen. Okay.
There we go.
Got it.
Perfect. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We're here today to talk about the latest generation of Crizal lenses that are rolling out this year, collectively known as Crizal UV. Starting in 2012, we are introducing a complete replacement to the Crizal portfolio. We're building upon the foundation that we had already established with the Crizal brand of being able to deliver the best enduring clarity of vision by fighting what we like to call the 5 enemies of clear vision. So glare, scratch, smudge, dust, and water. These are the things that provide a protective benefit to a patient's lenses. But we are expanding upon that story in 2012 by actually taking the protection to a new level to offer protection for the long-term health of a patient's eye. So we're now the only no-glare range on the market that is able to offer backside UV protection against the irreversible and often very damaging result of long-term UV exposure. So the overall message for the Crizal range in 2012 as we progress through this evolution is so safe and so clear. Building upon the so clear, the clarity of vision that Crizal already delivered, and now introducing an element to protect the long-term health of the wearer's eyes. So just some interesting facts about ultraviolet radiation. Frankly, there is a lot of room for us to grow in educating our patients about the damages of UV light radiation. Everyone knows about the damages that sun can do to your skin. In the U.S., nearly 80% of Americans know that the sun has a damaging effect on their skin, but less than 6% know that UV can be harmful to the eyes. This is a distinct opportunity for our eye care professionals, doctors, as well as dispensers to engage in a discussion with patients about the importance of having the most complete level of UV protection for their eyes. And furthermore, it's important to note that the eyes are the only internal tissue in our body that is directly exposed to UV radiation. So again, important that we have the appropriate protection in place to provide that utmost level of long-term protection. Now, when we talk about no-glare lenses, we've been very focused on the visible light spectrum. That's what no-glare is designed to do. It's designed to reduce and eliminate visible light reflections. However, we also have UV light, we know, which we can't see. And UV is broken into 3 spectrums, UVA, UVB, as well as UVC. Fortunately for us, UVC is not an issue for the eye. Most of it is blocked by the ozone layer. We know that if it could get through, it could cause a lot of damage. It's why everyone's concerned about the hole in the ozone layer and preventing that in the long term. We know that UVB is mostly absorbed by the cornea, but some amount will pass through to the crystalline lens. And then finally, you have UVA. And UVA, which is particularly absorbed by the crystalline lens, it's a combination of this UVA and UVB light exposure, which, for example, creates the onset of cataracts in our patient's eyes. So now that we've talked about the distinction between visible, which is what no-glare has previously addressed, and now ultraviolet, which is what the new generation of Crizal UV lenses are addressing, I want to talk about UV protection in general. So we have lenses out there that today talk about offering 100% UV protection. And that's a true statement. However, it's talking about UV light transmission. So this is light that transmits through the front of the lens. Very similar to visible light transmission, you have UV light transmission. We know that our higher index lens materials, so things like polycarbonate, Trivex, and our ultra-high index lenses block 100% of the UV light that's transmitted through the lens, as well as our photochromic. They block that UV light transmission. However, there's also light that is reflected off the surface of the lenses as well. This is what the new generation of Crizal specifically addresses. And these UV light reflections come from all directions. They come from above us, from the sun, as well as we know with polarized and tinted lenses, we talk a lot about the light that's reflected off surfaces, concrete, water, sand, snow. There's a lot of these UV light reflections coming from all different areas. What's interesting to note is the fact that up to 50% of the UV light can be reflected from the back side of the lens. We did a number of studies. Independent third parties took part in these studies into conducting research to understand and quantify the danger and the amount of this backside UV reflection. And that's where this up to 50% comes from, where it comes and it hits the backside of the lens and reflects back into a wearer's eyes. And what's interesting to note is that this is something that really had never been thought about by any of the lens manufacturers previously. It was essentially an unrecognized medical hazard. All manufacturers of no-glare lenses had really been focused on visible light, how we were going to maximize the transmission of visible light and minimize the reflections of visible light. We hadn't really thought about UV light and hadn't done so because, frankly, there was not a tool in place that allowed us to effectively measure this UV light reflection. Essilor spent a number of years with R&D in developing this device that allowed us to more efficiently and more accurately measure this UV reflection. And from that then stemmed our product innovation of wanting to be able to minimize this backside UV reflection. You'll see in a couple of slides going forward why no one had really thought about it. Without this measurement, you'll see that a lot of the competitive no-glare lenses out there have significantly high backside UV reflection. Again, it's due to the fact of being focused on the visible light and not on the UV light. The nice thing about the new innovation with Crizal is that we've been able to achieve with our patent-pending technology a balance. So we're not sacrificing any of the visible light, so we're able to maximize transmission and of visible light, but still be able to minimize that harmful backside UV reflection. So frankly, it's ideally the best of both worlds. So what you're going to see here is a demonstration of no-glare versus the new generation of Crizal UV. And I'm going to blow this up so everyone can see. And what you're looking at here as it starts is, this is just a UV light. We've taken UV ink and put it on a dark surface so that it's highly visible. And this is an ordinary no-glare lens, and you can see the reflection off the back side, how it highlights that UV mark. And this is the new generation of Crizal UV. And the side-by-side really demonstrates how the new no-glare coating allows us to be able to minimize and almost virtually eliminate that backside UV reflection. Minimize that. So the technology that we're rolling out, and this is starting at the top of the Crizal portfolio with the launch of Crizal Sapphire UV and Crizal Avance UV in February. And then we'll follow with the rollout of Crizal Alizé UV and Crizal Easy UV during midsummer. It's a patent-pending technology called broad spectrum, and it allows us to extend our superior no-glare efficiency from the visible light spectrum now to the UV light spectrum. The nice thing, as I mentioned previously, is the fact that we're still able to maintain that crisp, clear vision that patients have come to expect from a Crizal lens, while still offering this additional level of protection by eliminating virtually and reducing that backside UV reflection. So we're now addressing the visible as well as now extending into that invisible or UV light spectrum. And you might be asking yourself, well why? Why are you extending this onto your no-glare coatings for clear lens technology? So we launched last year Crizal Sun Shield, which is our no-glare technology designed for polarized and tinted lenses. And we're now extending that to the no-glare technologies that are intended for your clear everyday lenses. And it's because of the fact that you receive more than 40% of your UV light exposure when you're not in direct sunlight. So think of instances where you are walking the dog, checking your mail, where you might be coming in and out from your car into a building and not necessarily have your sunwear in place. It means that almost half of the time in your normal daily activities, you're potentially exposed to this UV light. And we know that no amount of UV light is good for the eye, period. And by having the appropriate protection in place, we have the ability to potentially delay the onset of things such as cataracts by up to 10 years, and other conditions such as pterygium, syngueculas, possibly even linkage to age-related macular degeneration. So it's important to have that appropriate and most complete level of protection in place as early as possible. So what you're looking at here is essentially we wanted to be able to show a comparison of how Crizal stacks up to the competition. So on the far right in the graph, you're going to see the new generation of Crizal. And this is irrespective of the product variant. So whether you're purchasing a Crizal Sapphire UV and dispensing that to your patient, or the Crizal Easy UV when it launches later this year, it offers the same level of backside UV reflection protection. And you'll see that's roughly 4.5%. And that actually takes that level of backside reflection down to a level lower than an uncoated lens even. So a patient doesn't have to make a choice between saying, well, I don't want to do a no-glare because I don't want this potential harm of damaging my eyes. Well, you don't have to make that choice. You can have all of the benefits of a no-glare technology, of the glare reduction, the scratch protection, the smudge resistance, and now also have the highest level of protection achievable with a no-glare lens. Now, you'll see that some of the competition is pretty significant. And this is an average of the scores. So some of these scores went significantly higher, but Essilor went in and took a weighted average to get a mean, essentially, to show how the different major competitors stacked up. And as you can see, in purple, that leading competitor is upwards of 40% of backside UV reflection, which is problematic. The thing is talking backside UV reflection is not something that we would want to have a discussion with on a patient necessarily in those terms, because it's not consumer friendly. And so what Essilor is introducing is essentially a new global index that allows us to measure the level of protection that their eyewear is delivering. We're calling this the Eye Sun Protection Factor, and it integrates both the amount of UV transmission protection as well as UV reflection protection. So the index really gives a good guidepost on the complete level of protection that lens is going to deliver to the patient. And if you see, for example, this is a 25, the E-SPF is the number of times that better protected I am compared to having no lenses in place at all. It's obviously very akin to what we use in the skincare industry with our sunscreens and sun creams and things of that nature. And it's designed to build upon a truth that's already pretty well understood in the consumer's mind, which is the SPF that's out there today. And what it does essentially is allows us to easily quantify for both our everyday lenses and our sun lenses the level of protection that they're delivering. And there's two levels. So within the Crizal portfolio, we have No-Glare technology designed for our everyday lenses, which is on the left. And then we have No-Glare technology that's designed for our polarized and our tinted lenses. So for the Sapphire UV down to the Easy UV, they offer an E-SPF of 25. And you have to think of that again in terms of sunscreen. So 25 is an excellent level of protection for every day. Think of your cosmetics, your lotions. All of those have kind of a minimum of a 20 to a 30 SPF recommended in those today. But when you're in the sun and you're expecting to have more direct exposure, so things like you're attending a sporting event, you're doing recreational activities, you expect a higher level of protection from your polarized or your tinted lenses. And that's why for Crizal Sun Shield, it has an E-SPF of 50 plus. And we were able to achieve this by, it has a slightly different stack on the back side than the No-Glares designed for the clear everyday lenses, because it was important to us to be able to afford that higher level of protection when we know that patients are expecting to be having contact with more direct exposure to UV light. So to take the information that we showed you in the graph a couple of slides back about those backside UV reflection values, this is how it translates into an E-SPF number. You have the Crizal Sun Shield at a 50 plus. You have Crizal UV, and this is Sapphire UV down to Easy UV of 25. And then you have competitor A, B, and C, which translates to a 2 and a 5 and a 5 respectively. And we know if you, again, think back to a sunscreen, frankly, anything with an SPF of less than 10 is a tanning cream. So you want to be able to get that level of protection up to a significantly higher level, especially when we're talking about something as delicate and sensitive as your eyes. I do want to point out the asterisk there at the bottom about 1,5 plastic. So we talked about the E-SPF. It's a combination of your UV transmission plus your UV reflection. And your No-Glare technology cannot fix what plastic lacks in UV transmission protection. We know that plastic does not provide 100% protection from UV light transmission. And it's for that reason why that E-SPF number is at a 10. If you put a Crizal UV onto a plastic lens, it will only have an E-SPF of 10. If you wanted to get that number up higher, you could either apply a photochromic, which would block the UV transmission. You could apply a UVX dip, which is frankly not recommended, especially on clear lenses, because you'll see up to a 10% yellowish tint, which is not something that's ideal for a patient when you're talking about having crisp, clear vision. Or the best option really is to have them make a smart choice on a material side and get them into a better quality lens material, such as a polycarbonate or up. So finally, just to reiterate, the thing that we are most pleased about with the Crizal portfolio is how well balanced it is. We offer superior protection against glare, scratch, smudge, dust, and water. And again, we're now able to afford an additional benefit to patients of offering the most complete level of UV protection as well. So it's accounting for those 5 enemies that address lens protection, and now extending that protection back to the actual wearer's eyes. So to sum up, this is what the portfolio looks like in 2012. Launched already are Crizal Avance UV and Crizal Sapphire UV. Those products became available on February 7th. Crizal Sun Shield, which is for polarized or tinted lenses, was available starting about a year ago, March 2011. And then we will be completing out the portfolio with a complete replacement for EZ UV and Alizé UV in mid-summer. Essilor believes very strongly in providing the best level of protection for patients out there, and this is why that we're rolling out this technology across the entire portfolio in 2012. A few resources, just to sum up. There was a lot of research that went into finding out about this backside UV reflection protection, the best means to address it, creating this global E-SPF index. All of these resources here, white papers, clinical papers, are available on the Crizal USA website, as well as there is a training module that is accessible if you would like to dive into that for additional information. And then from a dispensing side, there's a number of tools that are available to utilize within the office as well. Patient brochures, our training guide, which offers selling speech on the back side about how to talk about the product to patients, and then finally about that material upgrade of getting them from a plastic into a better quality lens material to ensure they have the most complete level of protection. So I want to say thank you for being so attentive, and if there's any questions, I'm happy to address those now.